The Cubs fall yet again to a division foe and are now closer to last place than they are to first place. We're going to talk about that. Seiya Suzuki and Nico Hoerner, two Cubs who are banged up. Do we think they might have to spend time on the injured list? And if they do, who might be waiting in the wings to join the major league roster? That and more on the Cubs baseball channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Jump in the comment section. Let us know how you're feeling about our team that can't seem to find a win against the Reds right now. We'll get into this, and here is your invitation to our show. What's up, everybody? There he is, Mick Gillespie. My name's Anthony Pasquale. He's at Broadcaster Mick, and I'm Ant_Pasquale3. This is the Cubs baseball channel. Thank you guys for joining us on this Saturday morning. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of good news for you as the Cubs dropped another one last night to the Cincinnati Reds. This one a little bit closer by the score of 3-2, but let's start with this. The Cubs spoiled another strong outing from Justin Steele.
Yeah, the good news is that Steele went out there and is looking like the guy that the Cubs had last year, and he's been kind of building up to that, right? 7 innings in the start, gave up 5 hits and 3 runs, only a walk and 7 strikeouts, didn't get much support behind him, got into a pitcher's duel with Nick Lodolo, who's a very good young arm. Cincinnati's on the rise right now because, they're able to score and they have starting pitching, but the Cubs have good starting pitching as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Steele was great. And the runs he gave up were more defensive blunders. So obviously you're pitching to Elly De La Cruz. You never want to put this guy on base because he's going to lead the league in steals this year and for many years to come. Mm-hmm. And Steele has a borderline pitch that I think Pitch Tracks had as a strike. The story of our season, once again, go the other way. So he reaches on a walk. Then Steele wisely throws over. They pick him off. And the throw from Michael Busch to David Bote at second base is a little bit off the mark, so he gets credited with the steal when Justin Steele should have had a pickoff on him. Then Spencer Steer's batting. Steele gets him to chase. Strike 3. Miguel Amaya can't block it. He reaches on a drop third strike. Elly De La Cruz to third, and before you know it, the Reds score 2 runs. Unfortunately, they go down as earned runs, but if a pass ball was considered an error, and if that throw to second base after the pickoff was considered an error, you're looking at 0 earned runs in that inning, and Steele would have had 7 innings of just 1-run ball. And he's been super unlucky. You have 2 starts that he's had to come out because of a rain delay. Obviously, the injury early.
Yeah, both injuries. I mean, remember, he got hit by the ball in spring training, and then he had the very next start, he had the hamstring, or the
then the 7 shutout against Milwaukee. They bring in the relievers and then 5 runs quickly on the board. He hasn't recorded a win since August of last season. He's been so unlucky despite pitching pretty well, but at the very least, it's a good sign to see Justin Steele pitching like that. I got my Justin Steele All-Star shirt trying to will him back into form, and he looked good last night.
So many issues with the Cubs defensively, right? You got and I've talked about the 2 corner guys. Busch is still figuring out how to play first. And if you would have had him in your organization, you could have had him playing first base, preparing for the job, and now he's getting on-job training, basically, right? And he's not perfect. He's learning the position, but he's not perfect. You should have had the out there. You got Christopher Morel at times playing third. I mean, he's pretty much your third baseman. He's learning on the job. He's not always great, and he's got the foot issue. But then, the catchers are the worst in baseball. They're the worst in baseball. And the Athletic did a really good story about that a couple of days ago. And it's honestly, it's a shame. I mean, we don't even talk about it, but every statistic, they're not good at framing. They're not good at hitting. They're not good at throwing out base runners, and there's not anything in the system right now where you can go, okay, here's the next guy, right? If Amaya was that guy and he was on that prospect list, but he's just right now, he's not good enough. Gomes feels like he's too old. But that is a gaping hole for the Cubs. And it's also a position that's tough to go out there and replace. And they had Casale, but they didn't bring him up, and he got another job. So
Yeah,
what do you do?
he's in San Francisco. I just actually took a look at his stats this morning. He's hitting below 200, so we'd
Yeah,
still
it's not
be.
like any better, right?
Yeah, it's not too much better. I guess the glaring question is, why did they not decide to extend Wilson Contreras? But this defense as a whole, I want to ask you, you've been around the game a long time, and I'm curious how much you think a manager can impact how well a team plays defensively. And I'm not trying to say if David Ross was the manager, the Cubs would be better defensively, but I am saying when David Ross was the manager, the Cubs were better defensively.
I think, well, see, I don't think it has anything to do with Craig Counsell. I think that it has to do with Michael Busch playing first, and and Christopher Morel playing third, and the catchers.
Would that impact Nico and Dansby not?
Yeah, and that does, because you're constantly throwing the ball to first base, and if you don't make a perfect throw or close to it, then it's an error, right? But if you have Anthony Rizzo over there making every single play,
yeah,
a Jedi, I think that's part of it. I think another part of it is that Dansby was, had a knee injury and playing through it, and he wasn't that good. Nico hasn't had the season that he had last year defensively, and then all the injuries, and then Seiya's in the outfield missing balls.
Mm-hmm.
They added Pete Crow Armstrong back. That's going to make your outfield, that's going to make your defensive depth better, not just the balls that he do, but the fact that you got to cover less ground on the sides.
And it allows Bellinger to place him first, which
is
better at defensively.
Yeah, right. So I don't think it has anything to do with Counsell. I think that it just basically, I said this at the beginning of the year, that you can't underestimate how important it is to have a guy at first base that's not just over there and doesn't know how to play the position. You need somebody that can make all the plays over there. And we just, he's getting to that point. He's not there yet.
Yeah.
Busch.
I think a lot of the guys last year took a lot of flack for not being good offensively, some of the moves that they made last year. But I will say at first base, both Eric Hosmer and Trey Mancini were really good. So that helps when you get throws from Nico and Dansby and either Morel or Madrigal over there at third, you could steal a few outs that instead turn into errors on those fielders. But as it stands, the Cubs are one of the worst defensive teams in baseball. Their catching is a big reason why. And as a result, they're now closer to last place than they are to first place. And they're back not only below 500, 2 games below 500. So what do you make of this? If the last 2 games of this series against Cincinnati go against us, we're looking at last place in the NL Central in June.
Yeah, and let me just throw it up there, because you really do make a good point. Through everything, right? All the disappointments that the teams had, and injuries and everything else, they've hovered right around the 500 mark. And then they beat the White Sox, who, by the way, fell a game short of their quest for 15 games in history by winning. They just blew it all by beating the Red Sox yesterday. But at the same time, look at this division. This is a really tough division. And you each one of these teams, you can say, hey, man, like Paul Skeens, the Pirates have a young pitching staff, and now you're seeing Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo with the Reds back-to-back days. They're all of a sudden tied with you. The Cardinals have been hot. They've cooled off a little bit, but they're right there in the mix. I don't believe Milwaukee's the best team in the division. I'm sorry. I think that eventually this could be a 5-team race.
Yeah, and
legitimately for the division.
I think a lot of times the NL Central gets kind of like pegged as this weak division, but and I'm not saying that they got superpowers, because like they're none of these teams are anywhere near the Braves or the Phillies or Dodgers or Yankees or any team like that. But the fact of the matter is, if you've got 5 teams that legitimately can win it, that's a hard division to win. Like, just because the teams might not be, world beaters, this division is still difficult to win. And the Cubs have been very, very bad against their own division. They're now 7-14 against the NL Central, and 3 of their last 12. So they need to be better against their own division. Like, there's no other way to put it, as they fall 2 games below 500 now and get closer to last place than they are to first place. you need to be better against your own, because how else could you expect to make the playoffs if you're not beating up on your own division?
I'm curious as to when the Cubs are going to turn it around, because I keep looking for them to turn it around, and each night it's the same thing, right? It's the defense is shaky, the offense misses opportunities, not great with runners in scoring position. They don't put a lot of pressure on some of the arms that they face, and they face some good arms in that division, but that's Major League Baseball.
Right.
And then when you get the lead, it's not a big lead, and then the bullpen stinks, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's this treadmill of perpetual, losing. And then once in a while they'll win a game, but they just haven't been able to really get on a roll. And we keep waiting for that. And it's like some of us get in the comment section, we're like, well, let's make a trade. But I don't even know if a trade really is going to, I don't understand what's going on other than some bad luck with the injuries and a bullpen. To me, the thing I'm worried about the most is the bullpen, because anytime you get a lead, it's just not safe.
Yeah, and I think the frustrating part too is I'm trying to scan the schedule for when the last time this happened was, but the Cubs haven't destroyed anybody in a long time. They haven't had a sweat-free get your mop-up guys in there, let somebody else hit. They haven't had a game that hasn't been close toward the end in a long time. I think it was back against the Braves in Atlanta at the beginning of May. Shota Imanaga pitched, I want to say, and they won 7-1, I think. And that was almost a month ago. You got to eventually have an 8-1 game. When is that going to come? And then maybe that, jars everything loose and the Cubs finally go on a run. But if it didn't happen,
the extra inning game, that's the only one, the extra inning game.
Yeah. And you thought maybe that would propel them, but if you can't destroy the Sox, I don't know if you can destroy anybody. And I know you're going to get a better effort out of them than they're going to give most teams, because it's the Crosstown Cup. But still, I mean, if you can't beat the brakes off the White Sox, I don't know who you can. But this team needs to beat the brakes off of somebody soon just to get some confidence back.
Yeah. No, I think that's well said.
And they're banged up again, which is unfortunate. Seiya Suzuki had 2 walks and a hit yesterday, ended up exiting the game. Mike Tauchman came in to replace him. I believe it was a foul ball off of him, and then something happened on the base pass.
Well, he was running. Yeah, he was running, and the throw hit him.
Yes, so he got checked out by trainers at 2 separate times during the game, and they eventually took him out. Mike Tauchman came in, and Nico Hoerner was off yesterday because 2 days ago he was hit by a pitch on the hand. Mm-hmm. And he went for x-rays, and they expected there to be no problem. But I believe Craig Counsell told the media yesterday that x-rays were inconclusive, whatever that means.
Well, you can't see it all with x-rays, right? You can see part of it, but you can't see it all. Remember when Bellinger had the ribs, right? The x-rays didn't show up, and then you do the CAT scans and all that other stuff, and you find it. It's just more bad luck with the roster. And, I'm curious as to, just say that Suzuki goes on the IL. What's the move? Suzuki seems fragile, and it just seems like he's hurt a lot. So is Alexander Canario the move, or Brennan Davis? Brennan Davis is back again. He hit another home run. He's on the 40-man roster. I don't know why you wouldn't just throw him out there and see what he can do, because when he's been healthy, he's been on a tear. And so who knows? I mean, at least you could build some value for him, but he hit a home run yesterday. And like I said, he's on the 40-man. He's never been called up, but they kept him on the 40-man
for a reason.
When they could have protected Jonathan Perlaza, who's a switch hitter with power from both sides of the plate, does a lot of things well, more of a power hitter than Davis. But they believe in Davis, and at some point, if you're going to keep him this long and leave other players unprotected, trade guys like Jake Slaughter, who were putting up big numbers, you got to give the guy a chance. But the Cubs need a spark, and I don't know where that spark's going to come from, but maybe it comes from Brennan Davis, and why not, right?
Yeah, we'll have to see. With Suzuki and Hoerner, obviously, you'd be looking to fill one infield and one outfield if they have to. Hoerner did come into pinch run yesterday, so I'm assuming he wouldn't be gone for long. And we saw how they handled his last injury. They didn't put him on the injured
What
list for
started
like
all
5,
this?
6 days, which kind of, started this big spiral. I think for him, the next guy up would probably be Mastroboni if they needed to.
Well, I hope they do Luis
Or
Vasquez.
Vasquez. Those are
Yeah.
the 2 options there. But then Suzuki, I think a lot of people would be calling for Owen Casey, who's been hitting really well. But the thing I noticed, and I don't know if the Cubs would do this because they trust the analytical left-right matchup so much with Tauchman, PCA, and Bellinger. Casey would be another left-hitting outfielder, which would be hard to squeeze in platoon-wise. So you'd look then to Alexander Canario and Brennan Davis, and both guys are on the 40-man. Canario obviously has come up already this season and has been sent down, but Davis up to 10 homers now on the season, and he's a guy that the Cubs have never yet seen what he can do at the big league level. So maybe he's the guy if they need to bring somebody up.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think at some point Owen Casey's going to take the job in right field. And what's going to happen is that right now, the thing that's saving Seiya Suzuki is the fact that, obviously Owen Casey doesn't have to be protected, and he's, left-handed. They got a lot of lefties, but he's had a good year. He's another guy that just eventually is going to be out there, I think, as their, everyday right fielder. But you're right. I mean, when you look at Brennan Davis's stats, he's only played 34 games and he's got 10 home runs and 26 batted in and a 406 on base percentage. I mean, like, he's been tearing it up. But so is Alexander Canario. I mean, very similar stats. 9 home runs, 29 knocked in 35 games. So they're 2 of the strongest players on that team. And they're both right-handed hitting outfielders. I don't think they're going to clear a spot for Owen Casey, but I think eventually they will. I mean, I think by next year, Owen Casey's going to be the guy that takes over at some point that right field position, just because I think Seiya Suzuki will get hurt. And then once Casey gets in there, it's going to be like one of those Wally Pipp situations, just a prediction.
Yeah, and if Christopher Morel can finally figure out third base, I think Seiya Suzuki long-term projects more as a designated hitter anyway, because he's had some struggles out there in the field, and being a fragile type of player, keep him out of the field and just on the bases would probably protect him a little bit. But that's just my thought on things. Speaking of injuries, Jordan Wicks is back. Should be a huge boost to the Cubs pitching staff. It seems like right now they're going to start him out of the bullpen, which I don't think is a bad move considering Ben Brown has been pitching so well out of the rotation, and you wouldn't dare move Javier Assad back to the bullpen. So it makes sense for Wicks. It gives the Cubs another lefty out there, and hopefully means less Luke Little and less Drew Smyly and high leverage, which has to be a good thing. Hopefully Jordan Wicks can get some left-handers out, but he also provides a good swing and miss guy in the back end of that bullpen that with, Smyly and Hendricks back there, they're lacking. So I think having him back is a big deal. Porter Hodge back to the minor leagues, and Keegan Thompson off the injured list back to the minor leagues as well.
And I'm curious to see what happens long-term with Wicks. I mean, the way that it was sold to the media by Craig Counsell was that, hey, look, we're just going to do this right now because he was going to have to build back up anyway. So is he really going to end up back in the rotation, or is he eventually going to, is he going to fill in to that left-handed relief spot that has been such a drain on the Cubs? Luke Little has great stuff when he can throw strikes, and he's been struggling in that area. Drew Smyly is Drew Smyly. Once the Cubs get these guys hot and they get going, I think that it'll be one of those situations where some of these guys will pitch better than they have been. But adding another good pitcher to the bullpen can't hurt.
Exactly. And I think just continuing to add good pitchers wherever you can get them, starting rotation, bullpen, just having more good pitchers on your team cannot be a bad thing. Cubs have lost 2 straight to the Reds, looking to get back on track today at 3:10. Maybe the night games weren't their thing, so a day game, maybe that'll help. What do you think?
Yeah, well, they got another tough pitcher that was homegrown by the Reds, and coming out of their minor league system, and Andrew Abbott. that's going to be on the mound, right? So that's 3 straight days where you're talking about homegrown starters that throw strikes and can get you out. And Ben Brown, I'm curious to see what Ben Brown we get. Do we get I'm throwing a no-hitter Ben Brown, or do we get the guy that, that got rocked around and knocked, in the dirt last time in this matchup? So Cubs need a big outing out of him. They got to score some runs. A win will make us feel a lot better, because you get a win, you're only 1 game under 500. Forget about the rest of the division. You just got to take care of the things that are ahead of you, and that means winning. If they lose, they're 3 games under, and you really start to feel the pressure of the losing.
Yeah, you're 3 games under and in 4th place if the Reds beat you tomorrow. So definitely something to keep an eye on. And dear Lord, Cubs, if Ben Brown is throwing a no-hitter, leave him in the game.
Yeah. I think the mental part of that is as bad as, anything that could happen with your arm, the physical part, because you're going to be there thinking for the rest of your life, I had the game of my life and these guys pulled me out. Could I have gotten 6 more outs? Maybe you go out there and you don't have any long at bats, and you get a couple of quick outs, and then all of a sudden you need 4, and you need 3. And when you throw a no-hitter, it's such a big deal in the game. And I know, like, analytic people don't care about the monumental, game type of accomplishments. It's all about the long term, like we're all robots and, like we're just programmed. But this is a human game, and no hitters and individual accomplishments do mean a lot to the game. And I wish that one day we're going to get back to that. But it is a shame that they pulled him out of that game. I still hate that.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully he can more efficiently no-hit a team and see how far he can go. But nonetheless, we're hoping for a W today, and hopefully Ben Brown is the guy to get it done for the Cubs. For Mick, I'm Anthony. Thank you guys for listening to the Cubs Baseball channel. We appreciate you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. Get in the comment section. Let us know if you want Alexander Canario or Brennan Davis. Let us know what you think there, and we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching.